All rise, the Honorable Judge Court Zepernick presiding. Please be seated. Court is in session. How's it going? Welcome. I'm Court Zepernick. It's time to dive headfirst into some of the big-time topics in the sports world. So with no further ado, please maintain your excitement over on the bench. Yes, I know. From jump, to kick things off, should the Bills be concerned in the AFC East? The resounding answer, no. Look, when it was opening night, it was an ominous night for the Bills back in Week 1 where all the attention was on the exordium of the Aaron Rodgers era for the Jets. And that same attention quickly reverted to a level playing field between the Bills and the Jets when Rodgers tore his Achilles early in the game. We all know that this would have been just another game for Josh Allen and what would have been the heavily favored Bills team if Rodgers was still playing in the Badger State. Nevertheless, the Bills are upset in Week 1, blow out the offensive juggernaut Dolphins in Week 5, and then lose all of their luster in the second time around in what you can now call an upset loss for this season at least, at the Patriots in Foxborough just 2 weeks ago. Yet the reason why it's not panic time for the Bills in the competitive but not vaunted AFC East is because the Bills against their biggest challenger, the Dolphins, sliced them in the fish fry at home at Orchard Park the first time they played them. In addition, the Patriots and the Jets now both, for the remainder of the season, have to venture to Buffalo, where the Bills are undefeated at home thus far, and their lone remaining divisional game is for the Bills at the Dolphins in the AFC East. So unless in the unlikeliest scenario the Jets and the Patriots stymie Josh Allen and that explosive offense and well-balanced defense in Buffalo, all bets to surround the Bills winning the AFC East for the fourth consecutive season, mainly by virtue of their schedule and how they're fortunate enough that the stingy division road tests are pretty much over. Besides the Dolphins, now they have to come home to the home Ralph Wilson built, a place where the Bills have already defeated their toughest competition on paper within the division against the Dolphins. The threat of the Bills not qualifying for the postseason, let alone winning the AFC East, should be laughably dismissed. The verdict on if the Bills are in trouble within the AFC East and being the favorite overall to win the division, a resounding no. From 100 yards of turf to the hardwood, 94 by 50 feet to be exact, down in San Antonio, can Spurs rookie phenom Victor Wembanyama make the Spurs relevant again beginning this season? The answer, no. Now, it seems kind of harsh, and a better alternative would be not yet. But for right now, no. This is mainly because although it's a very small sample size, I get that. The Spurs are currently 3-2 on the year. So 5 games played so far to open the season, with arguably their toughest opponent being their in-state rival, the Mavericks, on opening night. And what that was supposed to be, and was that supposed to be easy, we're saying? In many sports, especially sports with a perpetual season such as basketball, you can always use the inaugural game of the season as a barometer, a measuring stick going forward for mostly how the first half of the year, if not the entire year, will look. Not always, but often. It is an utmost importance, especially for a team that has been victory-starved for several years. Couldn't used to say that about the Spurs, but such as the Spurs, to send a message to the competition that we are a force to be reckoned with. And you just didn't see that with Victor Wembanyama and Greg Popovich's San Antonio Spurs squad, except last night when Wembanyama looked like the first overall pick, that in the hype that he'd expected to be, dropping 38 on the highly competitive Suns. But in that loss to the Mavericks, Victor Wembanyama, granted, first game butterflies, I get that, big stage, yet remains the sole dependent for the Spurs' competitive value in the vaunted Western Conference, scored 15 points, with 6 of them shooting at 50%, coming for the first 3 quarters. Since that game, cohesively, the Spurs are 3-2, as we mentioned, in the West at this current stanza, and they have yet to face a Western powerhouse team such as the Nuggets or the Warriors, and Wemby has been seemingly obscure besides that game against the Suns, basking in the limelight thus far. When you actually look at how the first overall generational talents have done in the past, notably LeBron James, there's been 2 names that stand out. LeBron James on poor teams and Zion Williamson now with the Pelicans. And now Victor Wembanyama of the Spurs, of course with a veteran, decorated coach and a decorated history that the Spurs have been able to establish over these number of years, may alleviate some of the pressure to turn around a depleted team such as San Antonio. But the fact is that Wemby doesn't have that singular talent ability forecasted as of now. The Spurs reaching the postseason and, if anything, being rewarded Rookie of the Year. The prospect of this happening totally dismisses this case altogether, the Spurs being competitive. It even turns into a cold one for that matter. There are results in the Spurs win column against fellow teams in the basement of the West for that matter. The verdict on rookie Victor Wembanyama making the Spurs a competitive team in the West this year, no. All right, and to wrap up this edition of Court is in Session, will the Philadelphia Flyers be competitive in the Eastern Conference, let alone the Metro Division? And I say yes, and that's mainly because of the track record of former Blue Jackets head coach turned Flyers head coach John Tortorella. For a team that went 25-46 disastrously and accumulated a near record low 61 points in the previous season, to already be standing at second in the division, much like we talked about the NBA, that small sample size in the NHL behind the Rangers is a massive plus. The futility has been real and the stigma remains with the team in the city of brotherly love. The Flyers are just heading off a cliff. Remember though, folks, this team just below the Flyers in the division are the Blue Jackets. Tort's recent alma mater, if you will. Prior to the June of 2022, guess who the last team to defeat the seemingly infallible-looking Lightning were in the playoffs? You guessed it, the Blue Jackets in the opening round back in 2019. And they took them to the cleaners. They didn't just beat them, they beat them with conviction. So that's why it's pivotal that the experimental phase with John Tortorella guiding the rebuilding Flyers is allowed to take its course. The track record speaks for itself. Every place Tortorella has gone, he has established a winning culture to some degree over time. So will the Flyers exceed or at least meet expectations in the near term? Maybe to probably not. Will they meet them during the course of the big rebuild? Much more likely. The verdict on if John Tortorella can make the Flyers competitive in the East? Yes. That closes these cases. Hope you had a great rest of your day. This court is adjourned. I'm Court Jepernick, and this has been Court is in Session.